right, we've got a few more people. Welcome, gang, to Raconteur Press Authors Read Boys Adventure. Settle down, for goodness sake. Gosh, you're not being a good example for the children, goodness. Anyway, we've got a couple of our Boys Adventure book authors here to do a quick reading for you today, and maybe if we got time, we'll talk a little bit about what Raconteur Press is doing with the Boys Adventure, and if you've got any questions or are interested in looking at some of our books up here today, we'll be happy to show you what we've got. But welcome. Well, first we'll start off with Fred Phillips, why don't you introduce yourself there, Fred, and you take over.
Okay, Fred Phillips. I'm the author of the Golden Fire series from Raconteur Press. Dreams of Golden Fire, the first book came out last year, and Sons of Golden Fire has been out for about a month and a half now. I'm going to be reading from Dreams today. When the shadow first passed over him, Aaron had been lying in the grass daydreaming, near dozing in his boredom. Of all the chores on the farm, watching the sheep in the field was the most tedious. He'd almost rather be doing anything else, even some of the nastier jobs, instead of sitting here doing nothing. Well, maybe he'd rather do this than deal with the pigs. He was thankful when his father had taken him off that duty and put him in the pasture. Still, the dumb animals milled around in the field, occasionally pulling up a strand of grass and munching on it. That was about as exciting as things got out here. Every time he complained about it, his father reminded him it was one of the most important duties on their farm. The fur and meat of those sheep are what keeps a roof over your head and food in your belly, boy, he'd say. When you're out here, there's nothing more important in your life. Every sheep that wanders off or is taken by a coyote puts your life in danger. Remember that. Aaron knew the job was vital, but he thought his father exaggerated the importance just a little. He'd inherited the sheep from his older brother when he turned 10. In the 2 years since, he'd never seen a single coyote, and while the sheep would occasionally wander away from the herd, one of the two dogs that patrolled the field usually pushed them back toward the main group. He hadn't once had to draw his bow, call for help, or even move from the spot where he watched. It irked him. Just once he wanted to see some action in the pasture. That shadow, though, that presented a new wrinkle. He was sure something had blocked out the sun, if just for a moment. He turned his gaze skyward, but saw only clouds. Could it have been just one of those covering the light briefly? Aaron didn't think so. It had passed too quickly to be a cloud, moved so fast that he'd hardly noticed it. A big bird, perhaps? He dismissed the thought as silly. None of the birds around here grew big enough to block out the sun, not even the rare eagles that occasionally soared over the field. An ear-splitting shriek drew his attention above and behind him, toward the tree line at the edge of the field. Whatever was there roared with a fury like nothing he'd ever heard. The sheep in the field bellowed nervously. Aaron's heart leaped up into his throat as he scanned the horizon, searching for the source of the scream. It came again, closer this time. A great wind blew in out of nowhere, whipping the tops of the trees and the grass on the edge of the field like a massive storm. A monstrous creature exploded from behind the cover of the forest, shooting high into the sky, then pausing at the top of its flight and hovering there as if surveying the farm. Sun glinted off jet-black scales, and huge bat-like wings flapped lazily as the beast circled slowly, eyeing the sheep like they were a dinner table laid for him. He dreamed about such creatures his whole life, but his parents had told him he was being silly for even thinking about it. They didn't exist, never had. Yet here was one right in front of him. The dragon craned its long, sinuous neck down to stare curiously at him. Their eyes met briefly, then the monster tucked its wings behind it and began to dive toward the field, toward him. Aaron's eyes widened and his knees went weak. For a moment, terror froze him in the spot, but he recovered quickly, reaching for his bow. The sheep bellowed and scattered as the dragon snapped its wings open wide only a few yards above the ground and settled gently into a soft landing. It reared back on its haunches and roared a challenge at Aaron. The boy knocked an arrow and let it fly from his bow, though it was little more than a toy to such a beast. The bolt struck squarely in the dragon's chest and bounced away harmlessly, skipping erratically across the ground. Aaron fired another quick shot, but it was equally ineffective. He was rewarded by a deep rumbling noise from the dragon's throat. If he didn't know better, Aaron would think it was a chuckle. Then the creature leaned forward, placing all four legs on the ground and stalking slowly toward the boy. There was an evil purpose in his eyes as it circled him. Aaron looked around in panic. Surely some of the other farm workers had seen the dragon by now. Maybe even his father, who often patrolled the fields randomly during the day just to make sure he was doing his job. He expected to see people running and shouting, but no one was coming. Somehow, no one had seen. The only thing in the fields were sheep scrambling madly to get away from the monster who intended to have them for lunch. He looked back at the dragon. It was close now. Aaron knew that he should break and run, try to rouse the farm, maybe even the nearby village. Together they might be able to find a way to take the beast down. Staring into its eyes, though, he realized he'd have no chance. It stalked him, muscles tense with a cat-like grace to its movements. The dragon was prepared to pounce at a moment's notice. If he turned to run, it would be on him in an instant, and he would join the sheep as lunch. Mustering up every ounce of courage in his body, the young shepherd drew the short sword at his waist, barely more than a large knife, really, and prepared himself to face the dragon. It was up to Aaron to stop it. The beast towered above him now, hot-footed breath pressing down on him, making him want to gag. Its cruel mouth, lined with razor-sharp teeth, seemed to be smiling as it reared its head back. Aaron took a defensive stance, raising his sword, and waited for the deadly strike. The dragon's maw zipped toward him faster than he imagined possible. He rolled to the side just in time to avoid being swallowed, the keen scales of the beast's jaw scraping against one leg and ripping his pants, barely missing his flesh. His mother was going to kill him, he thought crazily. Then he laughed like a madman. What were the odds she'd get the chance? As the monster's neck slid past him, he struck an ineffectual blow, his sword skittering off the shimmering scales without leaving so much as a mark. The dragon thrashed its head, catching the broadside of the blade, sending it flying from Aaron's grasp and knocking the boy to his backside. The sword flipped end over end as it flew and landed in the grass about 20 yards away. He would not get it back before the beast was ready to strike again. As he scrambled around on the ground, searching for anything else he might use as a weapon, his hand closed on the rough wood of the shepherd's staff that he'd never needed to use to keep the sheep in line. The dragon's head rose above him again, looking down upon his prey. Slimy saliva dripped from its jaws, sizzling as it hit the ground around Aaron. Then it opened its mouth wide and struck at him again. His death barreled down toward him. He shoved the staff at it. Amazingly, the shaft caught neatly between the beast's upper and lower jaw. Aaron found himself surrounded by teeth and a wet pink tongue, the smell of the beast's breath almost enough to end him on its own. The dragon's mouth was momentarily propped open, and the boy dived away from it. As he rolled to his feet, he heard snapping and popping noises as the monster used the crushing power of its jaws to break the strong open staff like a mere twig. Its roar shook the ground as it angrily reared back for another attack. Aaron was out of options. He scanned wildly for any kind of help or anything he could use, but there was nothing. All he could do was stare at those razor teeth as they descended on him for the third and most likely final time. The twang of a bowstring awoke him from his reverie, and he looked up just in time to see the shaft of an arrow fly overhead and slam into the neck of a coyote that had snuck out from the edge of the woods. The animal yipped, stumbled, and fell to the ground just yards from the herd. Another shadow, a very real one, fell over Aaron then. He stared up at his father standing above him, looking more dangerous than the dragon he'd just been facing in his daydream. His father dragged him up roughly by his arm, red-faced and sputtering as he scolded him. "What do you think you're doing, boy?" he yelled. "Didn't you see the coyote? Why didn't you shoot or at least call for help?" Aaron stood shamefaced as his father vented. He stared at his boots, penitent but unable to form any kind of answer, knowing that nothing he'd say would be good enough. Finally, his dad fell silent, staring hard at Aaron. When he spoke again, his voice was quiet and cold. "You were fighting dragons again, weren't you?" he said. Aaron nodded mutely. "That's the third time this month, and this time it almost cost us part of the flock." The anger in his father's face made him shrink away. He'd never hit him or his brothers, but Aaron had never seen this much rage in that face either. Seeing his reaction, his father softened, but only a bit, and then he sighed. "Son, how many times do I have to tell you that there are no such things as dragons? There never have been. And even if there were, the king's knights would be the ones to fight them, not farm boys. It's time you accept what you are and make the most of the life you have instead of dreaming about things that will never be." His father stared at the sky for a moment and shook his head. "Round up the flock and get them home. We'll deal with this when your chores are done for the evening." With that, his father turned and stalked away, leaving Aaron to gather the sheep from the field and lead them back to the pen near the house. He felt silly and ashamed for his daydreams. The one time in 2 years that he'd actually been needed in the field, he'd been far away. But for all his embarrassment, he felt a small spark of anger as well. His father was wrong about these sheep and this farm being his life. He was wrong about dragons too. They all were. They had to be.